This podcast is sponsored by Genelec. If you've ever been disappointed with the way your mixes sound on other playback systems, then check out Genelec's Unio monitoring ecosystem. By providing a seamless bridge between loudspeaker and headphone monitoring, Unio allows you to quickly create great sounding mixes that translate consistently, wherever you choose to work. No more guesswork, no more surprises, just truthful, accurate audio monitoring from stereo to immersive. To find out more, visit genelec.com/Unio, spelt UNIO. Your mixers will thank you for it.
Welcome to the Production Expert Podcast. I'm Ashea, and this week we're back for part 2 of our chat with mixing royalty, Andrew Scheps. We delve into all things immersive and spatial with practical real-world tips and tricks on the art of the mix, future technology, how not to be a dick, and other secrets to success. And a very pertinent question: where is the industry currently heading? We finished off part 1 with a question about mixing in Atmos with just headphones, so this is what Andrew actually had to say. In terms of panning and EQ, and obviously reverb as well we can get to, are there any particular rules that you're finding in Atmos that are the same or perhaps different to stereo?
There are, because the headphone version of it is so important. So I think a lot of the stereo, like left, right, trying to balance the arrangement so it doesn't sound crazy in headphones, I think those things still exist. I think that the learning curve of the phantom center versus an actual center speaker, and even in the binaural render of any of the immersive formats, putting something in the center is totally different than having it in the left, right, and having a phantom image. And so learning how to deal with that, what can survive going in different places. And on speakers, though, I'm finding more and more that I can do things. But I feel like the biggest thing for me is not to tear the song apart. And rhythmically, that's very easy to do. Arrangement-wise, it's very easy to do with a bunch more speakers. So you'll end up with things isolated that are distracting, and the thing that they used to be part of is now missing them, and it just ruins the groove of the song or the feel of the verse. And so, like, what do you do with harmony vocals? And sometimes they need to be tucked in right next to the lead vocal, and sometimes they can be in the back, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But I think the only sort of rule for me is that the left, center, right is the front wall, and 90% of the time, that's where the song lives. So if you turned off all the other speakers, you could listen top to bottom, and maybe the arrangement would seem a little not one note, that's a terrible way to put it, but it would still work, and you would have an idea of what's going on. But other than that, I think it's the Wild West in a really good way, but you have to make sure it works in headphones. And I do hear mixes where in headphones they're just weird and they're not that fun to listen to. And considering that's how most people are going to hear it, I think you've got to pay enough attention to that so that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to get into, because I did speak to Professor Hyun-Kook Lee as well, who I know that you know. It's a fascinating chat. 2 questions. Do you tend to work a lot on headphones in terms of mixing Atmos? And also, could you do a whole mix just on headphones, do you think?
I work a ton in headphones, and I work a ton in headphones for stereo as well. Just, I got used to it. But for the Atmos specifically, I listen to the Dolby binaural for the first 70 or 80% of the mix, I would say.
Okay.
And it used to be at the beginning, I mean, there's such a learning curve. You know, it's not like, oh, yeah, I can just mix with more speakers. It isn't that, because learning about what to do with the arrangement, that's a huge thing. But also sonically, like, what can people deal with while they're listening? What are you doing that's tricky, that's actually not good? There was a mix for the 1975, the song Petrichor, How to Draw, which is a very long, it might be 9 minutes long or something like that.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was the perfect track to just go nuts on. And fortunately, all at once, I learned the lesson about don't exhaust the listener kind of thing, because you can do so much. So there are a million things like that. But starting it in headphones, I know it's going to survive, and I know it works, and I know that it has some relation to the stereo mix if it's supposed to, which 99% of the time it really does need to. Then when I come onto the speakers, it's not that I externalize so well in headphones. I know exactly what it's going to sound like with something in the back or in the heights, but it's always really close. And I know a lot of people who mix on the speakers because the speaker mix is the master. There's no way I'm pretending that the headphone version is more important. It absolutely isn't. But I know people who mix almost exclusively on speakers and then they switch to headphones at the end and they're disappointed and they hate it. Whereas I can make something I think is great in headphones, get it on the speakers, change anything I need to change, but structurally, it still works on headphones. And every once in a while, I'll go back to headphones and like, okay, the balance on that has changed. And what's my compromise? Is it a panning position compromise? Do I compromise the level? And it always works. It just always works. So for me, I'm huge with that. Absolutely. Could I do something just on headphones? I think it would make me nervous, but I'm convinced I could.
Yeah, great. That's really good. You've mentioned about EQ and reverb, and you say that you're not particularly hot on reverb, and use EQ instead.
Well, I've said I'm not good at reverb.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, not good at reverb. So are there particular EQ things that you do to bring out excitement in a mix in terms of emotions? And
I think that all that stuff is exactly the same as stereo. You just have more room for it. I mean, I think one of the things that you learn very quickly when you're mixing Atmos is that things are more exposed. So fortunately, I've never been somebody who over EQs. I don't mean over EQ like you've done it wrong. I don't EQ that much. I've got broad, low, and high boosts on my mix bus because I really like low end and I like top. And then all of the EQ I'm doing while I'm mixing is, I'd say probably 90% of it is just little tiny mid-range boosts. So it's finding the bit of an instrument that's important and boosting that so that it cuts through around other things without just having turned it up. So things like that will always survive in Atmos because I'm not drastically changing something to get it to fit in stereo. And now when it's exposed, it just sounds bad. Like it's usually a good representation of whatever the recording is. It's just tweaked to fit around other things. And reverb, obviously, in stereo is reverb and delays is all about depth, putting things behind other things. So you don't need as much of it in some ways in Atmos because you can literally put it behind you. Like I don't need to make it seem like it's not sitting right on top of the vocal because it isn't. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing. And I don't know. I find that if I try and add too much ambience to things, then in headphones, it's just swamped. And so I think that what I do is much more subtle than what you could do, but I just feel way too strongly about the headphone version needing to work really, really well. And I think there are obviously lots of limitations, and we don't have to go into any of the problems with the headphone versions of immersive stuff. But when it's great, it can be a better listening experience than the stereo. It's hard, and certain stuff, it's difficult, like a really heavy rock record. If you mess with things and it sounds too spatialized, and sometimes you don't have control over that, depending on what platform it's playing back on, that can be a drag. You know, you don't want your kick drum to sound like it has reverb on it. But other music really benefits from it, even in headphones. And I need to make sure the headphone works. Therefore, as a corollary, I don't swamp stuff in the speakers. I talked in circles there, but I think I know what I meant to say.
No, totally, absolutely. It makes total sense. So are you, I imagine you use sort of virtual mix rooms a fair bit?
Nope.
You don't?
No, never. Well, not never. I do have, Hyun Kook's program Virtuoso is great, but I do have speakers, so I don't need a virtual room because what all of those are trying to do is to make it feel like you're listening to the mix on speakers. Well, I'll just use my speakers because I've got really nice speakers. So it's like, I don't need that. If I'm traveling, I think it's also, again, I spend so much time in headphones that I know exactly what I'm hearing and I know how it's going to translate. It isn't just the crappy thing I have to deal with at the end and wish I didn't have to. It's just part of the process. So I feel very comfortable tweaking an Atmos mix in headphones and not needing to hear it on speakers again. If I'm traveling, that's not a problem at all. I already know that everything I'm doing is going to work on speakers because it already works on speakers.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
and the more I do it, the fewer surprises there are when I go from headphones to speakers anyway. It's more like, oh, I could do even more.
The Production Expert Podcast is made possible using the new Source Nexus suite from Source Elements, the professional way to collaborate over the internet, along with high-definition, low-latency audio and video. Need to record an interview or a podcast, or collaborate with others for songwriting, review and approval, remote editing, and more. With Source Nexus Suite, using any browser, you'll get studio-quality audio and video, along with custom-built tools for seamless integration with your DAW. Pricing starts at free. Get your account today at sourceelements.com.
I'd like to talk a little bit about Hyun-Kook Lee's research and the future of immersive. I imagine you've looked into psychoacoustics and 3D audio.
Yeah, tons.
It's absolutely fascinating. How do you see the future of immersive?
Well, I mean, I feel like the future of immersive is completely dependent on consumer electronics companies. It's all about how do people listen to it. And I feel like when you get people in front of some speakers and they hear a good immersive mix, they lose their minds. Like, it's so good. And there are neurological reasons that it is a cooler way to listen to me. Cooler is the wrong word. I don't want to go completely down my little rabbit hole, but when you don't notice distractions, you are concentrating on the music that you're listening to.
Yeah.
When you listen in stereo, stuff that's going on behind you will distract you, and your brain wants to know that it's nothing you need to pay attention to. And so the masking that happens in the front is much heavier than the masking that happens with stuff that it thinks is coming from the sides or behind you. But when there's a coherent audio thing that's coming from all around you, the threshold of waking you up about something goes up. And I feel like, I mean, the word immersed is apt in this particular case. I think that you can be more mentally immersed in the music because you're not going to notice as many distractions. So the promise of it is huge. And there's a lot of academic work being done on immersive playback for music therapy and how much more effective it is and things like that. So I think that stuff is really important, but it all depends on people being able to listen at home. Because the headphone version is great and people are going to keep listening on headphones, but there's no way that the listening public is going to clamor for immersive mixes just from listening on headphones. They don't even know they're listening to it most of the time. So I do think that that's one of the most important things, and it's happening more and more. You know, I think that the ability to have some Bluetooth stuff that can figure out where it is in the room, and all of a sudden you can have at least quad or 5.1 if you've got a 3-channel sound bar, and then you can add a sub. And like, I've got a little 5.1 setup of Sonos stuff that's I've had forever, just a sound bar, 2 speakers behind me and a sub, and it sounds really good.
Yeah. And how much did that cost in total?
Oh God, you know what? I've had some of it for 15 years. So I don't know. I mean, it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it is certainly not like trying to buy yourself a 12-channel amplifier and a bunch of powered speakers. And it's doable for people who would normally be investing anyway. It's the promise that there was with 5.1, where everybody was starting to put a home theater in at home. And, well, it's a home theater. Of course it's at home. And a DVD player and the TV, and they had a place that they sat, and they were surrounded by 5 speakers, and they would have a sub. But first of all, there's no real viable headphone version of that. So you had to buy it twice. You needed to have the stereo and the 5.1. You had to have it on an SACD or a DVD. And worse, the format called for a different speaker setup than the home theater 5.1.
Yeah.
It's so easy to ruin a song in Atmos or any immersive format. that you need to have some idea of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it is incredible when you actually do listen to a really great immersive mix. It's so much better. Maybe better is not the word, but it is just...
I think it can be better. I think like there's an artist I've worked with, well, for the last 12 years, Low Roar. And the last record, it was all produced for stereo. We were not making an Atmos record other than I used one of Hyunkook's microphone array designs to record string quartet on 2 songs. But other than that, all done for stereo. And unqualified, the Atmos version of the record is better than the stereo. And I think the stereo is amazing. It's one of the few projects where I will actually say I think it's good. And the stereo is amazing, and the Atmos is mind-blowing. I've managed to do a couple of Atmos playback events, one in London when the album came out, and I just did one in LA.
Nice.
And it's incredible. And it wouldn't be like that having some audiophile stereo playback of the album. It would be different.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think maybe virtual reality will come into play in terms of Atmos mixes, immersive, and we'll get a kind of crazy situation where we're in this sort of virtual, audible, immersive reality?
It could. I don't know. I mean, I think that the non-success of the iVision Pro, or is that what Apple called their thing?
I think so, yeah. I think that was the name.
I think that points to people not necessarily wanting to do it, you know?
Yet. Maybe that's a yet thing, though.
It could be. But like if you see their ad for it, the long sort of intro video about it, and they show, I think it's like a dad in the kitchen doing some stuff, but it's the mixed reality so he can see when the kid comes up. And it's like, man, I don't want to look like a cyborg to my kid. Like there's something, it's still too disconnecting. But then again, I think that the 3D, the meta sets for playing games and things like that are certainly more popular than they used to be. But it's hard for music only. I think you have to have something that's visualizing the music. It can't just be, I'm going to hang out on the moon and listen to a song, I don't think.
No, it's like, have you met Justin Gray?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's amazing. I went to his screening at Dolby in Soho.
Oh, I missed it because I was in LA when he did it. How was it?
It was amazing. Honestly, it was really good. And just everything, how it came together, the musicianship. You know, I think a lot of people are scared maybe of the future in terms of, it can be a bit dystopian, sort of like a Black Mirror episode maybe. The idea of virtual reality, all of us walking around with these VR kind of glasses on. But I also think, I don't know, there's the creative possibilities of that are fascinating as well.
I agree. I mean, to both points, I agree. I think, have you read Ready Player One?
Oh, no, I haven't.
It's a great book. The movie was okay, but it's basically life sucks a lot and the game is awesome. And so everybody spends all their time with their headset on playing the game.
Right.
And that's the thing. But at the same time, if it's really great in there, but I don't know, that's a super slippery slope. But that's the thing, is how do you get an alternate reality that can be absolutely amazing to fit in with your day-to-day, maybe not quite so amazing reality? And I mean, that's a much bigger topic, and I don't even know what I think about that. But that's kind of where we're at with that.
Yeah, I think it's something we have to work out as a society, and we're sort of in that at the moment, really.
Yeah.
So over the years, I know you've worked with many legendary artists. Can you think of some of the most fundamental recurring things that might be key to your success as a mixer?
Well, when I talk to students or do any seminar or anything like that, I always say that there are 2 answers, and one of those 2 answers will work for any question you ask about anything in mixing and also, I mean, kind of in life. And so the mixing one is that the only thing that matters is what comes out of the speakers. It's because it's really easy to talk yourself into the fact that you have done a process and therefore something is probably good. And that's never true. It's never true. And maybe it was bad before and it's still bad in a different way, or maybe it was better before, or maybe you're a little bit better, but you're still not good. And so you have to, and this is the whole thing about trying to stay objective, is having perspective on something should make you wipe away everything you've done up to that point and just assess where you're at and decide if you need to do more stuff. And then the other one is don't be a dick.
Love that one. Yeah.
And that applies to everything else that ever comes up. So I think one of the reasons I've been able to do what I've done, especially when I wasn't just mixing and I was doing a lot of recording and some producing, so you're in the room with everybody, is to read people and understand how to be a good hang, like how to be someone that they want in the room. Because the talent has to be a given. You have to be good at what you're doing. Otherwise, there's no way you're going to be in the room. So the way you stay in the room is to be someone that they like having around. And I've been good at that. And I think some of that is not treating people like they're superhuman in some way. Like, I think it's actually refreshing for a band that's huge to get into a studio and just be a band making a record.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't happen for them that often. I mean, I'm rewatching the Beatles anthology right now with my wife, and they talk about how, you know, everything changes and it's easy for them to adapt to their own lives, but how it changed everything at home. And Ringo's talking about being at his aunt's house and he spills a little bit of tea into the saucer. And his aunt's like, oh my God, Ringo can't have that. And like whips it away and cleans the saucer. And he's like, what are you kidding? I've done that 5,000 times in this house and you have never once asked to clean it up.
Yeah, but now he's a celebrity.
Yeah. And so to be able, and you see it in that documentary when they get into the studio, they're just screwing around. They're just a bunch of kids doing what they do and they're better at it than most people. But I think being able to have the interpersonal part never be an issue is part of certainly recording and producing, but it's part of mixing as well. I mean, you've got to be able to have a conversation with people and keep it on point.
Yeah.
But for the mixing part is to never, ever do anything unless you're doing it because you heard something that you don't like.
Yeah.
That's it.
I like that. Yeah. There's a great point. I think putting people at ease, I think that's a sort of broader summary of what you're saying, among other things, is really important. There's nothing worse than being, uptight and scared as an artist. You're about to go in and pour your heart out onto the microphone, and people are making you feel uncomfortable.
Yep. And absolutely, I've seen sessions end for the day because the engineer was joking, but said something slightly sarcastic, and some singers love that. They absolutely love it. And some, it shuts them down and that's the end of it. So
you got to be careful.
Yeah, and you've got to be good at feeling it out.
This podcast is sponsored by Genelec. If you've ever been disappointed with the way your mixes sound on other playback systems, then check out Genelec's Unio monitoring ecosystem. By providing a seamless bridge between loudspeaker and headphone monitoring, Unio allows you to quickly create great sounding mixes that translate consistently wherever you choose to work. No more guesswork, no more surprises, just truthful, accurate audio monitoring from stereo to immersive. To find out more, visit genelec.com/Unio, spelt UNIO. Your mixers will thank you for it.
Okay, so I have 3 questions from our listeners and community.
Fantastic.
So one of them is from Stephen Gallagher. You may know him. He's done a lot of film scoring work.
I definitely know the name. I'm not sure if I've met him or not because I'm horrible about remembering anything ever.
Likewise. So what is the best thing you've ever done, he asks.
Low roar. There's no question.
Oh, good, because I wanted to ask you about that. And Matthew has 2 questions, and he says, the first question is, the biggest wow... Oh, sorry, I'm just reading this. The biggest wow I never realised... Oh, sorry, no. The biggest wow I never realised that moment.
The biggest wow... Oh, you mean like something I did and then found out later on?
Yeah, like wow, I never realised that. Yeah.
I had absolutely no idea how big 99 Problems was after I mixed it. Absolutely no idea for a few years. and then realized like, holy shit. And it's still, there was an ad in the tube for one of those, not TaskRabbit, but one of those like, hey, my sink stopped up, and, call somebody, and somebody, it's, gig economy stuff. And it was somebody with a screwdriver and a light switch. And the ad was, I got 99 problems, but a switch ain't one. And I'm thinking like that thing's so old. Does that actually connect with anybody anymore? Apparently it does. And
it's so epic.
Yeah. So I had no idea how gigantic that was.
Wow. What did it feel like in that moment when you realized?
It was a creeping realization. It wasn't like an aha moment, but it was, it's a big deal. And I really think that that's one of the better mixes I've done. It really explodes when it needs to. And it was a super simple mix. So I like that about it. Not that that really matters. But another one was last year, the Hozier song Too Sweet. I had no idea it had exploded, but you find out quicker because it reached 1 billion streams in 8 months or something like that.
Wow. Yeah, that'll do it. You don't go anywhere, I assume. That doesn't mean you don't ever leave the house, or maybe it does.
Yeah, I don't leave the house a whole lot. I used to leave the house a lot more, and it was... The lockdown made me realize that I said yes to almost everything, teaching, talking at schools and doing seminars, like lots and lots of stuff. And I always really loved doing it, but I never, ever said no. And so I'm saying no a lot more now. And so I don't leave the house a whole lot.
That's going to make all the hermit people listening feel really pleased.
Well, I do have natural light in the room I work in, though, so I would recommend at least that, so you know that there is a world.
Fair enough. And so last question from Matthew as well was, when was the last time music made you cry? And I think I know the answer to this.
Well, I'm one of those people who I haven't cried since I was a kid, which is very unhealthy.
Aww.
Incredibly unhealthy. The last music, the last song on this last Low Roar record, House in the Woods, the title track, it's still, every single time I hear it, and just talking about it right now, it's really difficult. There's a big backstory, but basically the main artist, Ryan, from that band, he died a few years ago, and it was before that record was done. And so I finished the record along with Mike, who co-produced it as well. But that's definitely the hardest thing I've done as work. And every single time I hear that song, it's brutal.
You can hear it in the song, the emotions. It's really, I don't want to say haunting because that's not the right word, but it's just sort of beautifully sad.
Yeah. And his music was always that. He was in a band when I first met him, he was in a band, and they had just played a gig at the Troubadour opening for somebody. I still remember because I could barely hear him. We were upstairs at the Troubadour and we just finished this gig. And he's like, I want to do something beautiful and sad. And there was 2 or 3 other adjectives he was making. And for me, that's the kind of music I respond to anyway. And he was describing Low Roar years before he even started it. And it's just what he'd always wanted to do. So the circumstances surrounding the record, I think, are making people listen a little bit differently. But there was no sense of anything while he was working on the record. It was just, we were making record number 6, and that's what was going on. But it's a very introspective, beautiful record, and that song is devastating.
Yeah, I can well imagine. I really can. So you were very involved, obviously, in the Low Roar project.
Yeah, it's the closest I will ever be to being in a band. I play tons of instruments. I did string arrangements. Ryan, the records weren't made with all of us just in a studio making a record. That only happened once on the 3rd record for 5 days at the end. And it was incredible. And whenever I would talk to Ryan about, what he liked and didn't like in the Low Roar catalog, every single time he would say that was his favorite record because we were all in the studio. There's nothing to do with the music, nothing. It was just because of that experience of us all being there. But So I did more on those records than I've done on any record, and probably ever will do on a record, unless I somehow turn into somebody who can make his own record, which I don't think I am that person. But
yeah, I mean, you do enough as it is.
yeah, well, but it's those are really, really special to me because I mean, from the very first record, even before Mike was involved, it just says Low Roar is Ryan Carazia and Andrew Scheps, and then Mike became the other band member on all the other records, and that's just the way it was. We just made these records, and Ryan would call me because he'd written a song and he was about to go into the studio and record it. And, what did I think? And I'd always, well, try this and try that. And then he'd always forget and just do it the way he'd been doing it anyway. So I'd be involved from the very beginning, but it wouldn't come to me until they were like, yeah, I think it's done. We can just mix it. But then that's when all the rest of the stuff that I would do would happen. I'd play tons of trumpet on the last 5 records. I thought that I hadn't, that it was only the last couple, but I listened to the second record the other night. I was playing it for somebody. Like, oh shit, there's trumpet on there too. So yeah, it's a really special project.
Oh, that's really lovely. And I've heard you say that you wanted to be in a band, but perhaps you didn't feel like you were musical enough. Or
yeah, I mean, I was an okay trumpet player, and I've never been good enough on any other instrument to play in public. And I don't necessarily want to. It's just I know what I'm good at, and Pro Tools and I play lots and lots of instruments. I've played bass, harmonium, strings. I've done all kinds of stuff, but I'm not going to go force anyone else to be in the room while I'm doing it.
Yeah. I mean, there's like you're showing, and many other people, there are, many ways of being in a band and many ways of being a musician, particularly these days as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move to Find of the Week. What's your Find of the Week?
Okay. I got 2. One is just related to climbing, because I was talking to the people at the climbing gym to say, well, I want to climb outdoors more, and I wanted to find someone to do it. So there is a company called Chalkstone Mountaineering that was recommended to me, and I am hoping to get in touch with Vicky and make her take me climbing outdoors. So there's that. That's a little discovery. But this morning, I was in the gym, as I am, and I was on a treadmill, which is horrendously boring. So I just have Apple Music, it's self-seeded station for me now. Mm-hmm. And a song came on, and I thought, oh God, I love this. What is this? What is this? And it turned out it was something I'd actually mixed, and I'd completely forgotten about the song, and I love it. And it's a song called Windfall by Cass McCombs. And it's so good. It's such a beautiful song, and the way it's put together. And, I think I like the mix because it serves the song or whatever, but it's nothing to do with the mix. It's just, I'd completely forgotten that song existed, and it was so great to hear it again.
That's nice when you've done a mix and you've forgotten that you've done it, I imagine.
Yeah, well, especially when something comes on and you're like, oh man, I haven't heard this in forever. This is amazing. And it's not because it's your mix. And then it turns out you actually had something to do with it. Like, I mean, that's the point. Well, the point of doing what I do is to try and make mixes that people want to listen to. But the point in an overall life of it is that you get to touch this music, and therefore you can't take credit for it, but you had a hand in it. And so if people love it, you can feel proud about that. And that's pretty special. So yeah, check out that song.
Definitely. I actually have one more question for you. Which just made me think, what's on your playlist at the gym? What do you listen to?
Well, things just happen. I mean, today, I wonder, can I see what it did play? I think I can. Okay, so some of it is just things that I have listened to. But this morning was Jeff Buckley, Dream Brother, Read the Room by The Smile, then a Low Roar track.
Nice.
Landslide by Smashing Pumpkins, which I didn't really know that song. It's very acoustic. I really like it. Something from Alan Johannes, who I think is an absolute fucking genius. And there's an album called Hum that came out during lockdown that I listened to probably 100 times easily. A song called Someone from that.
Yeah.
Then Roy Harper, Cherishing the Lonesome.
Cool.
Kate Bush, Breathing. Fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Love that. Yeah.
My Brightest Diamond, who I've done a couple records with Shara, and she's an absolute genius, and I love her. A song called There's a Rat, which I didn't work on. Someone called Lou Doyon, who I don't know, but that was quite good. And then Cass McCombs. Then Windfall came on, and that was right at the end. And I've stopped it with 34 seconds to go, so I can listen to it again later.
Fantastic.
So that's today's treadmill playlist.
Nice. Very nice. So is there anything else you'd like to add before we end?
I don't think so. I feel like I've just been talking nonstop.
No, it's been great. Honestly, it's been really informative and fun. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. It was really fun doing it.
That's all we have time for, but thank you very much to Andrew. And in these uncertain times, creative vision is perhaps the biggest tool we can use to stay ahead of the game. So stay tuned for next episode. We'll be discussing just that and more. Before you go, we had one last question from John McJunkin that we received after recording this episode, and Andrew very kindly answered it via email, so here it is. So John asks, when you do your rear bass parallel compression on the Neve, you're known not to include drums percussion. How did you reach the decision to go that way? Happy accident? And Andrew answers, it happened because the rhythmic stuff already had a bunch of parallel compression, so it didn't feel like it needed to be in it. And I wanted the instruments and vocals to interact. So there you go, John. There you go, John.